Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Tonight, we delve into the cold, unforgiving hearts of places where hope goes to die, abandoned prisons. These decaying fortresses hold more than just the echoes of suffering. They cradle the tormented souls trapped within their walls. We've scoured the darkest corners of history to bring you three terrifying tales of those who linger long after their sentence is served. Turn down the lights, turn up the volume and prepare yourself. Tonight, we journey into the abyss of the forgotten. Our first story brings us to the crumbling ruins of Cranbrook Penitentiary, a place choked by the suffocating grip of its own grim past. Locals spin yarns of a ghostly guard, a spectre draped in the tattered remnants of his uniform, eternally pacing the cell blocks. He's not just a story whispered around campfires, though. Those who dare trespass on his haunted domain claim he makes his presence known. A group of thrill-seeking urban explorers, drawn to the prison's macabre reputation, decided to tempt fate. Armed with cameras and a false sense of security, they stepped over the shattered remnants of the prison gate, entering a world swallowed by shadows and decay. The air inside Cranbrook was thick with the stench of mildew and the oppressive weight of countless forgotten sins. As they ventured deeper, the oppressive atmosphere pressed upon them, a tangible presence that sent shivers racing down their spines. They fanned out through the crumbling cell blocks, their headlamps cutting through the oppressive darkness, their hushed whispers the only sound besides the creaking groans of the dying building. The first sign was a faint, rhythmic clang echoing from the far end of the cell block, a sound like a heavy ring of keys striking a metal bar. Then a cold spot, a pocket of pure Arctic chill that descended upon them despite the summer night. One by one they swore they saw him, a towering figure shrouded in shadows, his face obscured by the darkness. He was always just out of reach, a fleeting glimpse at the edge of their vision. They tried to rationalize it away, but deep down a primal fear began to blossom in their chests. Then, as they rounded a corner, they found him. Standing at the end of a long, narrow corridor, bathed in a single beam of moonlight that pierced through a broken window, stood the ghostly figure of the guard. He was just as they had pictured him, tall and imposing, his uniform a tattered mess, his face shrouded in darkness. But there was something about his eyes, two pinpoints of spectral light that seemed to bore into their very souls. For a moment, no one dared to breathe. The silence was shattered by the sound of the guard's keys clanging against the bars, a sound that seemed to reverberate through their very bones. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he was gone, vanished into thin air. Panicked, the group scrambled back the way they came, their previous bravado replaced by a raw, primal fear. Our next tale takes us to the desolate plains of the American Southwest, where the wind whispers secrets through the barbed wire fences of Blackwood State Penitentiary. Blackwood was once a brutal holding pen for the worst of the worst, a place where hardened criminals were sent to rot. Now it's a desolate wasteland, a graveyard of broken concrete and shattered lives, but within its crumbling walls, a different kind of prisoner remains, one who exists beyond the veil of death. Thomas Finley, a freelance photographer with a penchant for the macabre, had heard the rumors of Blackwood and its resident ghost. Intrigued, he decided to spend a night within the prison's crumbling walls, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural with his camera. Armed with his camera, a tripod and a flashlight, he stepped into the belly of the beast, ready to confront whatever might be lurking in the shadows. The air inside Blackwood was thick with dust and the stench of decay, a suffocating combination that clawed at Thomas's lungs. He wandered through the cell blocks, his flashlight beam dancing across the walls, illuminating the faded graffiti and the rusted bars that once held back a tide of human misery. He set up his tripod in the center of one of the cell blocks, hoping to capture some long exposure shots of the prison's eerie interior. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. A cold spot settled in the air around him, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. But there was nothing there, or so he thought. Reviewing the photos later that night, his blood ran cold. In the background of one of the photos, a shadowy figure could be seen peering out from behind a cell bars. It was tall and gaunt, with long, stringy hair and eyes that seemed to burn with a malevolent light. Thomas's heart pounded in his chest as he zoomed in on the photo. The figure was clearly visible, and there was no mistaking its menacing presence. He tried to rationalize it away, telling himself it was just a trick of the light or a figment of his imagination. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had captured something truly unsettling on film. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, Thomas returned to Blackwood the following night, determined to capture more evidence of the phantom inmate. He set up his camera in the same spot as before, his finger hovering over the shutter button, his heart pounding in his chest. Hours passed, and the only sound was the wind whistling through the broken windows. Just when Thomas was about to give up hope, he saw it. The shadowy figure emerged from the darkness at the end of the cell block, its eyes fixed on Thomas. It glided silently towards him, its movements fluid and unnatural. Thomas snapped photo after photo, his finger frantically pressing the shutter button. The figure stopped just feet away from him, its eyes boring into his soul. Thomas could feel its cold, dead breath on his face. Our final tale brings us to the decaying Gothic towers of Ashwood Asylum, a former prison-turned-mental institution where sanity and madness blurred until they disappeared. It's said the warden who ruled Ashwood still casts a long, dark shadow over the grounds, his presence a suffocating weight that crushes hope out of those who enter. Local legend claims the warden, Silas Blackwood, conducted horrific experiments on the inmates, convinced he could bleed the evil out of them. His methods were barbaric. He saw himself as a shepherd, guiding his flock towards the light, no matter the cost. But Silas's flock fought back. Driven by whispers, paranormal investigator Amelia Mason arrived at Ashwood, drawn to its grim history, like a moth to a flame. Armed with recording equipment and a spirit box, she ventured into the asylum's decaying heart, ready to confront the darkness within. She had faced malevolent spirits before, but nothing prepared her for the evil within Ashwood's walls. The air was heavy with decay and disinfectant, a nauseating combination. The silence was deafening, broken only by the creaking of the building and distant scuttling sounds. Amelia set up her equipment in the former warden's office, a room that reeked of power and cruelty. As she flipped the switch on her spirit box, a wave of static erupted from the speaker, followed by a chilling whisper. "Get out!" Amelia pressed on, her voice calm and steady as she spoke into the darkness. "Silas Blackwood, I know you're here. I know what you did to these people. Answer me." The response was instantaneous and filled with rage. The lights flickered and a cold wind whipped through the room, sending papers scattering across the floor. The spirit box crackled to life. "You will suffer as we suffered." The temperature plummeted, and Amelia could feel a presence closing in on her, suffocating her with its rage and despair. She saw them then, flickering at the edge of her vision, shadowy figures, their eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. They were the warden's victims, their souls twisted and tormented by the horrors they had endured. They reached for her, their spectral fingers closing around her throat, their voices a chorus of whispers and screams. Amelia gasped for breath, her vision blurring at the edges. She could feel herself being dragged down, pulled into the darkness. But just when she thought all hope was lost, she remembered why she was there. She was a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of light in the darkness. She would not let these tortured souls consume her. Gathering her remaining strength, Amelia raised her voice, her words filled with both compassion and defiance. "I hear you, I see you, and I will tell your story." The shadowy figures recoiled as if burned by her words. The air grew still and the oppressive feeling lifted. Amelia took a deep breath, her heart still pounding in her chest. She had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had blinked. Amelia left Ashwood that night, forever changed by her encounter. The warden's curse still lingered, but Amelia had given voice to the silenced, offering them a measure of peace in death that they had never known in life. And so the tales of Ashwood continue to be whispered, a chilling reminder that some wounds run deeper than flesh and bone, leaving scars on the very soul of a place. The rusted bars and crumbling walls of abandoned prisons hold more than just echoes of the past. They cradle the tormented whispers of the forgotten, the residue of pain and suffering etched into every brick and bar. Thank you for joining me on this chilling exploration of the abandoned and the haunted. If you enjoyed these tales and dare to venture further into the darkness, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more spine-chilling stories. Until next time, sleep tight, and if you hear a noise, pretend you didn't.